All right. So make sure everybody's popped in. As we go through here, if you guys have questions, never hesitate to um, to pop in and ask questions or hit um, the chat. So I will jump in and out of that as well. So what we're going to do, or what one of the topics that I did share over is, and I try to simplify some of these components, is just practical ways to get your protein and some type of balanced macro. Now, when we get into really specific macros and um, our software does that and it will give you, and I'm going to start putting together weekly, I think it's weekly feedback based upon your data tracking within the app. And it will pull all your data points and it will send a just an overview. And I'm going to try to trigger up this off on most Mondays, but what we'll do is it'll kind of give you a synopsis of like, hey, here's the areas that you're doing really well in. Here's where your macros are at. Here's what you want to focus on this week. And this is going to be all about data entry. So the more data points we can get on from you guys as far as the tracking component, the more fine-tuned we can get your nutrition, and then it becomes just putting the pieces of the puzzle together. So what we're going to talk about today is some practical, simple ways to get a higher protein meals in, and what does that look like? So, and then I'll give you strategies of what we personally do as well as I sprinkle and go through this. And again, I don't want to beat the dead horse, but you're going to hear me talk about protein's going to be the foundational component. It drives muscle repair, metabolism, the hormonal response, energy, immune response as well. So what we want to try to do with that is really simplify the meals and have some type of consistency where we're hitting certain marker points within the week, within the day, and then within compounding within 2 weeks, within 3 weeks. Because again, when you start getting momentum and moving in the right direction, the needle's going to move for you. But it's stacking those wins on a 7 day standpoint, a 14 day, 21. You just as you can stack more days on top of each other, where you're winning those days, that needle will consistently move for you. Now, obviously, there's life comes into play, and I understand that. So it's more about how many wins can we get, how close can we get to hitting the marker points we need to hit. So obviously, with busy lives, you need quick, easy, accessible things that you can grab or cook or prepare to help you with hitting some of your macro goals or your protein goals and carbohydrate goals. Carbohydrates are a little bit easier to hit because obviously they are we consume a lot more carbohydrates than we do proteins in general. But anyway, you want to define a repeatable system for yourself, and it doesn't have to be perfect. We have to be close enough. Again, to the 80% rule. Uh, and the reason we say it has to be a repeatable system for you is because every person's a little bit different in their palate, what they like to eat, their traditions, what does that look like for them. But if we can give you some of the tools and knowledge to make a better decision within your ecosystem, it's going to be a win-win. So again, it's an empowerment for you guys to make those decisions, but we will help guide you and give you the tools to do that. So some of the general principles, and again, this is a wide range because it's male and female, is if we can aim anywhere in that 30 to 50 grams per meal, we're doing really well. For men, we push a little bit higher. I mean, some of mine may be up to 60, and that's intentional because some days I know with my schedule, I'm only going to be able to get like 3 solid meals in, and I might not have any snacks myself. I'm not a big snacker, but I have to design. my day around my meetings and my obligations and making sure that I'm going to hit my specific goal myself. So I will be very intentional on certain meals to really push up my protein because otherwise I'm going to be under eating or under consuming that protein. So um, another thing you want to think about is when you're putting the meal together is what does the fiber look like? And then are you consuming any type of healthy fats? And then if you can, and this is where you can really make up some ground, is can you keep the carbs more from a whole food source? I always reference back to can you keep the carbohydrate from a high fiber veggie? That's going to be really, really good for you because it's going to give you the carbohydrates, it's going to give you the nutrients, it's going to give you the fiber as well. So when we think about carbohydrates, we don't have to always go to, hey, it has to be pasta, it has to be bread, it has to be things like that. You can get your carbohydrates from your veggies as well. So choose convenience without compromise. So I'm going to go through a couple different options. So I'm going to take a drink here. Excuse me. Here's some samples that I use myself. Aaron uses as well. So for breakfast options, we use a lot of Greek yogurt. You can make it into a power bowl. I do this more for my lunch when I'm really busy, like today. Uh, it's probably going to be because I still haven't eaten yet for my lunch. I ate my breakfast a little bit later. I will do some Greek yogurt, some berries, protein as well. So what you can do is we do a full fat Greek yogurt, 1 scoop of protein powder, and then I'll throw some blueberries in there myself. Now you just got to watch with the tablespoon of nut butter. That may start pushing your calories too high. Again, I made this for men and women, so those calorie ranges are going to be off a little bit. So you would want to be careful with any type of nut butter because that may push your calorie consumption up a little bit too high. So you want to be aware of that. My ratio when I do something like this, it's going to be in that 400 calorie range, 400, 460, and I will try to push my protein above 50 grams if I can with a meal like that. That way I know my ratio of protein for that meal is getting me closer to my ultimate goal. And my protein intake is going to be a little bit higher in comparison to some. So again, that goes back to individual. The other one is eggs, scrambled eggs, 3 to 4. I think Aaron does 3. I actually do. I will do 4, but then I add, and she doesn't add this. I add a good amount of either full fat Greek yogurt or I will do a cottage cheese on top of that to push again my calories up and my protein. So you can do a low carb tortilla wrap with this. Add salsa or avocado. So again, you're getting some of your fibers, your fats, things of that nature. Again, this could be quick and easy. Our breakfast is typically quick and easy. We knock it out fairly fast and move on to the next thing we need to do. So another thing you can do, and a lot of I don't do this as much, but we've had a lot of success with other clients utilizing overnight oats. I think the big thing with that is making sure your ratio of carbohydrate and protein are closer because I've seen it happen multiple times where the carbohydrate ratio pushes too high in this, so the calories in comparison to your protein source become too high. So just be careful if you do the overnight oats to make sure you're still really aware on the ratio of protein carbohydrates because otherwise it can really knock you off just from starting out your day. Now, some other options would be just a general shake if you're, quick and easy, a protein shake. Typically, we'd want to see around that 25 grams plus if you can get there with your protein shake. So, a way to pull back the calories on a protein shake is use water instead of, milk or whatever other fluids you guys may use. That's just one simple way to keep the calories a little bit lower in comparison. So there's small tricks that you can implement throughout your day that by the time you get to the end of the day, you can really manipulate how many calories you're consuming in the ratio of protein carbs, but you just have to be aware in those situations. So obviously for lunch, we want it, fast and if you're on the go, like most of us are busy, there's different ways that you can set yourself up for success. So you can, and I'll talk about this at the end, prep some type of, lunch access. So this would be a chicken or steak bowl. So pre-cooked protein, rice, veggies, olive oil drizzle. Again, simple, easy. That's just an example. I'm just going to give you three examples, and I'll talk through some other things that we personally do in this. So tuna or salmon pack with crackers, paired with, cut veggies, a salad kit. This is another way to do it. Um, and then some type of protein packed wrap or sandwich. Making sure if you do a sandwich, you have a good amount of protein on there, so that way with the bread, or maybe you pull half the bread off, and it's not going to be as carb heavy. So just be aware. There's just slight things you can do. So high protein wraps with mustard greens. You can do different types of deli, turkey. The rotisserie chicken we use quite often. Again, when I talk about these things, when I talk about these things, it is, hey, we're going after convenience and towards the macros. Okay. Now, would somebody say, well, what about it's deli turkey or it's processed? You want to try to get a better quality if you can, deli meat or rotisserie chicken. But again, if it's prepared or if it's processed, try to make a better decision. At the end of the day, if we're still close to hitting our calorie goals and our macros, we'll be okay. Again, we sometimes you're going to have to sacrifice a little bit of quality for the convenience factor. It is what it is. In a perfect world, right, we'd all eat Whole Foods the whole time and yada yada yada. But we understand that we don't. It can be more of a challenge to do it that way. Even though we recommend having some of those meals like that. So other things that we do personally, and we cycle this. So when I'm saying about cycles, because I get it. We want some variety. So what you can do is find, several lunch options that you like, and you cycle them from week to week, or from every other week. Uh, we do a lot of, and we cycle this, right? Because you can get burnt out on specific meals. We would always do a salad and a chicken. So what I would do is on a Sunday, I would cook up X amount of chicken breast, and we obviously dice them all up and put them in bowls, and then we would have our salad mixes available, and then we would just choose, will we do that for lunch or dinner, depending on our schedule and what was going on. It's just a matter of having the availability and having the accessibility of that option. So that's just an example. And then we would cycle different lunch meals where it would maybe it's a beef for one meal, it's a chicken for the next day, and it goes back to beef, chicken. So again, you want to manipulate that and have that variety built in. It's just a matter of identifying, what's the protein source going to be, what's the carb source, what's the fat, how does that fit into your lifestyle and what you have personally going on. And again, I do a lot more tuna. I like fish more than Aaron does, so we may cycle that. Uh, there is some really good tuna that you can get in glass containers or bottles that is a higher quality tuna, and it's a really really good protein source, obviously, and a good fat source. And I'll have to look at the name. I think it's Totino's, something like that. I can always share that over. But it is a little bit more expensive, but it's a great tuna that you can purchase at like a Whole Foods or something. I think a Fresh Market used to carry it, but I think you can actually order it online as well. And then here's some simple frameworks for dinners. You want to, pick whatever your protein. And I kind of just talked about this because you can do this for dinner and or lunch. What's your protein source, carb source, fat, and then how do you want to, flavor that meal? What does that look like for you? Do you want to bring sauces in to add some different flavors? That is always fine to do, but making sure that you don't push the calories too high with some of the sauces and flavors that you can add. So there's different ways to do that. But we're always adding, some type of low cal, maybe barbecue sauce or something of that nature. If it's a chicken meal, again, you got to figure out what flavors work for you. And there is a lot of better quality sauces that you can bring in that are very low calorie and pretty clean. They've done a good job in that marketplace. So again, what does it look like? Chicken, beef, fish, eggs. That's going to be protein. It could be turkey. Again, you can go down to the vegan, the tofu. What does that look like for you? But we want to have a foundational component there. And then we go into carbs, the rice, potato. Um, Again, we always personally try to do a some type of veggie and get our carbohydrate from there. Now, do we have potatoes and rice? Yes, we will. We cycle that. Um, Again, olive oil, avocado, butter. Those are going to be your fats, and fats are typically easier to bring in and push up the fat content. And again, anytime a person starts to increase their protein intake, their fat is going to increase as well. We're not necessarily worried about that unless it's the type of fat you're consuming. So, and then you can bring the sauces to add some more flavor, herbs, hot sauce. You got to figure out what your palate's like, but there's a lot of different ways to change and mix up the flavors. That way, at least you have some variety and you don't feel like, oh, it's chicken again. Just because it's chicken doesn't have to be boring. And a lot of times we frame healthy as boring. It doesn't have to be. You can add a lot of flavor, still stay within your macros, still feel satisfied and hit your protein goals. So it can always be a win-win. So you want to try to keep it basic and convenient and easy. And then you can rotate these dinners, 3 to 4 dinner combos that fit your lifestyle and what you have going on personally. Um, Again, that's going to look a little bit different for each individual, where they're at in the phase of their life, kids, work, husband, wife, I understand it all comes into play. So I'm going to go through some good on-the-go options that you guys can go after, things that we use, and then just specifically having them available. I think that's probably the bigger part of it. That way, if you do get caught in a crunch, you have some go-to items that will keep you kind of in a framework of hitting those macro goals. So there's a lot of different ready-to-drink proteins out there, different ratios and calories. I know, I think it's Fairlife that a lot of you guys use, which is fine. And that is going to be a go-to to have when you're on the go or have it available if you get caught in a pinch. So if you get caught in meetings, things of that nature, if you have those available, again, utilize them. The jerky, we actually use the beef sticks from First Form. They've done a better job with having cleaner beef jerky and or beef sticks. They pull a lot of nitrates out. Again, you got to figure out what fits you. Do you like that or not? If not, obviously find another option. Protein bars with lower sugar. This can be a little bit tricky, but again, if you get caught, I would rather have you try to get that protein source instead of, just grabbing a carbohydrate. So the ratio, and I had a while back, I put together a ratio component with protein and carbs. This one is a little bit harder to hit because a lot of the bars just have how they design them and make them. There's going to be more substance typically because they have to last and hold that product together. So there's going to be more chemical base to that. And then with the bars, sometimes it's a little bit harder to get that protein ratio up higher. So you'll see a lot of bars that may have 8 grams to 12 grams of protein, 130 calories. That's a little bit on the lower side. I would like to see at least 16 to 18 to 20 if you can hit that ratio. I know a lot of times when you start getting up to that 20 grams per bar, it starts pushing a little bit higher on that calorie ratio, 180 to 2. So you just got to be careful with that. Um, string cheese or cottage cheese, you can put them in cups or have them available if you have a fridge. I use cottage cheese quite often as a way to kind of help push my protein up. So I'll use it in conjunction with my meal, understanding that, hey, I need to get my protein source up to a certain marker point. If you're going to do the nuts, obviously with nuts, you can push your calories pretty high fairly quickly. So you want to make sure that you portion those out properly. And again, I think one of the coaching calls that I did was on using a scale. If you have a scale, once you get a understand an idea of what portion sizes look like, it becomes a lot easier for you to do. And again, some of the packaging will go into description of what a serving size is. What does it look like? How many amount? But with nuts, the calorie, it's going to push up fairly high because of the fat content. And then having fruit available, apple, banana, berries. A lot of times, fruit gets a bad rap. It's not the culprit. Typically, it's other things that we're doing, not necessarily the fruit. So, yes, will fruit have a different response to insulin and things? Yes, it can. But it's typically fruit is okay. There's a nutrient component to it. If you pair it with protein, that could be a win-win because the protein is going to stabilize the insulin response. So there's just different ways to maneuver that. So, and then when you think about shortcuts and being prepared for the week or doing this in the weekend or midweek, it just depends on your schedule. Uh, you've heard me say this because we do it quite often is we'll cook protein in bulk. So a lot of times we'll do X amount of chicken breast to have available. Sometimes what we'll do is we'll cook a few plain and then we'll cook a few with certain spices. I understand that we're going to do something a little bit different with the one we didn't put any spice on. We're going to use it in a different recipe. Uh, we just had it. We went ahead and pre-cooked it. Just understanding for this week, hey, on this day we're going to use it for this type of meal and we're going to add this to it. So you can do it that way as well. Some other hacks that will help. Again, we can go down the rabbit hole of saying, hey, you probably shouldn't microwave stuff. Yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother subject, but microwave rice cups, steam bags for speed, frozen veggies. Again, there is cauliflower rice we use quite often, and it really mimics the texture and is it exactly rice? No, but it comes pretty close to filling that gap, and it's going to be higher fiber and obviously lower in carbs. So there's just ways that you can choose and manipulate these combinations to really start adding up from a week to week, from a day to day, meal to meal basis that can get you right on point where you need to be with your specific goals. And then we still do this in this format, pre-proportion meals in containers. We have glass containers and we will prepare certain meals for the week. Like even last night, we knew it was going to be a little bit later night, and Aaron had cooked a Saturday, I think, meal, and it was a chicken based and had some noodles and some veggies and stuff. We went ahead and she cooked more and knew that we were going to have, enough to have another whole meal for all the family to eat. And we put it in the containers, and we actually ate that last night, knowing that our schedule on Monday was going to be packed all the way up to the evening. Wanted something quick and convenient. Well, that was cooked on Saturday. We ate, the original meal, and Aaron put him, you know, enough of the leftovers because she cooked X amount to cover our Monday. So there's just different ways to do it, thinking ahead. And then we've used this a lot with meals throughout the day, uh, having our lunches prepared, and maybe we cook dinner, or just like I said, we already had dinner taken care of. We just needed to heat it up. So it's just again finding out what works for you. So here would be the big picture of a day. So for breakfast, again, if we can get you up to that 30 grams per protein, man, it starts you off in the right direction. Specifically, we are coming out of a fasting state. It's a natural fast, depending on how long you sleep, 6 to 8 hours, whatever it looks like, maybe less. Hopefully, you're getting up there and getting, 6 plus. But um, we're coming out of a natural fasting state, and we want to consume a protein to help stabilize your insulin energy level so that way you don't have a spike and dip. If your first meal is carb heavy, what will happen is it spikes your insulin, and then you're going to get that energy component, then you're going to have a fall off. And the the hunger response is going to kick back in for you really hard. So you're going to get really hungry. If you can get that protein in, what will happen is it'll stabilize the insulin, but the hunger hormone response will be stabilized and it takes longer to break down. So your energy component will be stable. So it's a much better introduction to coming out of a fasting state to take a protein source in. So just think of it from that standpoint. That first meal of the day, really try to focus on getting your protein source in. Okay. Again, I gave you an example of the Greek yogurt protein berries. That's quick. You can do that really quickly and get out the door. You can turn that into a shake if you'd like. You can do the Greek yogurt with protein, some berries, and obviously whatever fluid, and make that into a shake if you'd like. Uh, I used to do that quite often as well in the same format because I needed to push my calories up a little bit and I wanted my protein to be higher. I would take Greek yogurt, full fat Greek yogurt, put it into my shake, and then throw some blueberries in there and down the hatch and out the door. So now I'm going to talk about snacks and unsnacks because you look at the total here is 1,800 calories at 22. If we pull the snacks out, it's going to drop below because again, I've set some of these ratios up for general men and women. So good snacks, protein, and some of you may not consume snacks, which is fine. I typically myself don't, unless I've had a really heavy lifting day. I might have to push my calorie count up just a little bit because my metabolic process is pushing pretty hard. But anyway, snack examples, protein shake plus almonds. You can maneuver that in different formats. Lunch, again, you want your chicken bowl, rice and veggies. Could it be a steak? Could it be turkey? Whatever protein source that looks like, right? Again, another example of a snack is string cheese plus apple. So it's going to be a carbohydrate and some fat and some protein, a combination there. And then dinner, again, examples, pretty simple, salmon, potato, green beans. We don't have to complicate it. I know sometimes we want to make it more extravagant. And you can. Obviously, there's a ton of different recipes you can utilize. It's going to take a little bit more effort and preparation and time and making sure you have all the ingredients when you start getting a little bit more elaborate in your preparation of the types of recipes you are wanting to consume. So again, it gives you a breakdown, 18 to 22, and then 150 to 200 grams of protein. Again, these are just ratios. We should have some of your stuff specifically set up within the app. So the big thing that, I want you guys to take away with is we want to try to simplify the process, give you the tools to make the decisions to fit your palate. Because again, we all, and I would say we're pretty routine. We're creatures of habit for the most part. We we like the same food or eat the same types of food over and over and over again. If you would really look at it from that standpoint, um, unless I'm weird, I don't know. I just I'm pretty typical on eating the same types of food, but it may vary without throughout the week, the day, the month, but it typically cycles back. So we want to give you a simplified process to repeat, and the wins are going to add. We want consistency. We got to have more wins than losses. We don't, we are going to have some days that, hey, shit hit the fan. It's going to happen. But we want you guys to have more wins, and those wins are going to compound. So prep protein in bulk if you can. Build meals around protein first. Like always think about that. Hey, how can I get that in? It doesn't always have to be, a meat product. It can, again, whatever fits your palate. But you do have to be more cognitive of, hey, if I'm going to try to get, 25 to 30 grams of protein in for this meal, I'm going to have to do X, Y, Z. And then keep the backups around and available wherever whatever your environment looks like. If it's at work, you want to have them with you. If you're traveling on the road, you want to have them with you. Um, you know, at home, again, having them in the pantry, uh, in the car, again, whatever that looks like, having them available and staying disciplined to the process of consuming them when you get off, right? So if something throws you off and like, oh, I got to grab this, but I have this, cookie or brownie over here, I'd rather eat. You, making that decision, it's going to add up. So being disciplined to the process. So you want to have a balanced macro to each to have sustained energy. Again, we set a lot of those things up, and we can manipulate those based upon individual. What I'm saying there is protein, carbs, fats. Typically, we're in a fat loss phase. We're going to push your protein up. Your carbs are going to stay a little lower. Your fat's going to be up a little bit higher. That's that is what we're trying to do is obviously keep you in some type of small caloric deficit. We want to get you into fat oxidation, which is huge and important because we want your body to start utilizing fat as a fuel source. We cannot control that. What we're trying to do is put you and build an environment for your body to do that naturally. Uh, and that's being higher protein, a little bit lower carb. The fat's going to be a little bit higher once we start getting you resistance training, get your metabolic process up. So there is a science and rhyme and reason what's going on from a metabolic standpoint and why we ask you to do certain things with nutrition, but never hesitate to ask, if there's specific questions you have about that, never hesitate. We will, if we don't know the answer, we have resources to help guide you to the correct answer. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and pull out of this. I'm going to open it up for questions and see what specifics that you may have and see what, what else I can do for you guys today. So I'll go ahead and open it up. If you guys have any specifics.
Hi, I just have one quick question.
Sure.
The difference between like non-fat and full fat, I
Mhm.
think sometimes, especially with Greek yogurt, sometimes it's like what is available at the grocery
Yeah.
store based on the flavor, like the brand I like. But can you tell me, especially if I'm trying to watch that fat content creep up over the day, like where I should be prioritizing or
Mhm.
what the cost benefit here is?
So I mean, I would have to look through the ingredients depending on which one it was. So I'll just give you here's what happened. Here's what happened to the industry. We were duped a little bit, and I think they got wrong research. So if you recall, I remember this as a younger adolescent and seeing all this fat-free stuff on the marketplace. Everybody was attacking fat. Well, come to find out, they some of the research we had been doing was not correlating with what the end result was. So they started going after fat. And what did they do? So they pulled the fat out, and what did they put in place? All kind of stuff. Well, probably sugar, probably some other ingredients to make it taste better, because fat is going to give a flavor. So for the most part, I'm not worried about that fat, the full fat Greek yogurt, unless you have some other things or issues going on. Because you just got to watch the product, because sometimes when they start pulling that, even with Greek yogurts, they'll start putting other compounds and other things in there to make it taste better. And it's typically sugar and or other combinations to get the flavor. Um, and some people don't like just the plain full fat Greek yogurt. I'm fine with it. Some people are not. So what you can do with that is add some sweet berries or drizzle a little bit of honey or something like that just to push the sweetness on your own. See, that way it gives you 100% control of the end product. But yeah, I mean, that's a great question because it gets confusing.
Yeah, and I like the ingredients look relative. Like I like
Yeah.
Stonyfield. That's sort of the brand that
Yeah.
I like, and
Yep.
they're
Yep.
not that different. And so I'm just like, why? What's the? And sometimes the grocery store carries one and not the other,
Yeah.
and
That's
so it's
that
usually
happen.
like what I can buy.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if I should like seek out, go to another store, prioritize, or if it's like it what I can get for a week is what I can get for a week, and go
Yeah. I
back to the
would.
other one the following week.
Your thought process is right. What you can get
Okay.
for a week. I don't think we do the same thing. There's certain brands, and sometimes they just don't have it. They're out, and you're like, oh, that's I like that one better. It has just a little bit different flavor, or how it's they just have their nuances. So yeah, you're 100% correct. I wouldn't sweat that too much,
Okay.
because fat is typically not the enemy. It's the types of fat. I would say I would be more concerned with eating processed foods because they put omega 6 in there, and omega 6 will block out our omega 3. So long story short, we should have X amount of omega 3 essential fatty acids. We should be consuming that. Most of us don't consume that enough of it in our diet. We just don't eat those types of foods, fish, other seeds and things. If somebody eats higher processed foods, well, they put those omega 6s in those processed foods, and your body will absorb those fats. And then if you go and try to consume your omega 3s, well, those pathways are blocked. So your body will not want to consume or utilize those good fats for you. That's where I was like, that's an example. That's where I'm like, okay, hey, we got to watch certain fats because our diet or our palate, we're consuming too many that may be harmful. But fats are actually really good. Hormonal balance, the tamping down the hunger response, all those components are really good. So you have the right thought process.
Thank you.
Mhm. Anybody else? And I gotta fix this light. I gotta move my desk because I'm the light's behind me and it buzzes everything out. But that's a whole nother. All right. Well, um, like I said earlier, if you guys missed some of it, I appreciate you guys filling out those surveys. So what I haven't had, I cruised some of them, and it's a lot of content. So what we'll do is I'll cruise through all those, and we'll start pulling out, the top list, and we'll start working down those topics, and then I'll start trying to pull more resources towards areas that you guys may need more support, and then we will label out the coaching calls based upon the topics we have. So that way you guys have a little bit more scope and understanding of what's coming down the pipe. And if you have time to jump on, hey, there's a specific topic. Again, we're going to record these anyway, and we'll kick them out to you. So I appreciate that information. So it gives me a little bit more clarity and understanding of what your guys' needs are. And again, those are going to be a little bit different for each person. I just try to give you, some broad topics to go after first, because with nutrition, again, marketing unfortunately confuses a lot of us. Labels confuse and have confused us. They've gotten better with stripping those things back. Um, if we can simplify it, simple and easy, and don't overcomplicate it, don't overthink it for the most part, it is always going to allow you to make better decisions. Obviously, there's other components that come into to nutrition, and I understand that because emotional responses, stress, things of that nature. Those are different topics that we will touch on, and that's going to be more in the programming component, the NLP stuff we do, because we will start doing 100% topics with more mindset. I know Erin does that on her coaching call. I will pull some of those things within the nutritional realm as well, because a lot of times if we have emotional responses, we need to go a little bit deeper into understanding the purpose, why, and start peeling back some of those behaviors or programs that we carry with us. And if we can start picking those apart, we can have a good transformation of how we respond to food and how we manage our stress and our state. And that's, you know, that's an area that we will address as well because it's very important to understand state response. So, well, if you guys don't have anything else, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I appreciate your time. Again, thanks for filling out the forms, and I look forward to going through those later today and start compiling them. And what I'll do is I'll kick out a calendar or some format that you guys know what's coming down the pipeline for you. So, with that said, have an awesome day, and I appreciate the time.